Don't forget to drink your water. Okay, so let's just jump right into this. Oh God, I'm totally off frame. How's that? Today we are going to be editing some photos. I'm gonna kind of just do a quick and dirty sort of walkthrough and my thought process on how I edit photos in Lightroom. And specifically, we're gonna be doing some portraits today. But yeah, I'm just gonna show you my techniques and my thought process behind what I do when I edit. So this is the before. Here's the after. And you can see before, it was a very bright day. The sun, I don't know, it's like 2 p.m. I think. So the sun was very high in the sky. Harsh lighting, so that's why I chose to go in the forest to soften it up a little bit. After a while, you kind of know how the photos are gonna turn out in the editing process based on how they look in the camera. So this is like, when I shot this, I knew I was gonna be able to turn up the exposure and just soften up that lighting and make it look really dreamlike because we have it coming more so in the back. So we brighten up the skin, we brighten up the shadows a little bit and soften up the overexposed parts, which doesn't take away from the image because it's just kind of creating this dreamlike feel. So I'm gonna take the crop tool up here. Kind of my thought process behind cropping is really it just depends on the image, but I love things to be centered. And if it's not centered, then I like it to be in the rule of thirds. Basically, it's just more pleasing to the eye. It makes a better composition. And you can use these points and these guide references to help kind of line things up and make a better composition. I'm gonna zoom in until I think it's even on both sides. So there's enough space for each subject here. Next, what I'll usually do is I'll usually skip most of these basic adjustments up here, at least for the start, unless there's anything that I notice that I really want to change right away. But usually I'll kind of come back up here as I do other things and make minor adjustments. But first off, I know I want to bring down these highlights. Clarity. Now the thing about clarity is I think a lot of people who first start editing, they think that the more clarity you have, the better the image it is. But I've actually found that a lot of the times I like to soften up my photo and I'll use the clarity tool to sort of make it more dreamy. Because if there's too much clarity, like right now, these are all just hard edges. But if I bring this down to like -5, it'll soften it up. It wasn't open, but I'm gonna open the tone curve tool. And then we're just gonna do an S curve. And so what I'm gonna do is add some contrast here, but then I'm gonna soften it up by bringing this very bottom point down here. And I'm gonna bring this up. And then I'm gonna bring the top one down. And what that's gonna do is target like the brightest parts, the brightest whites, and it's gonna kind of flatten them a little bit. I'm gonna go into the white balance here. I'm gonna make it just a bit warmer. And then I'm gonna take the tint. I think I'm gonna drag it towards the green a little bit. So here I'm gonna go to the HSL. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna click right here. And what this lets you do is now you can target whatever color you want to turn the saturation down or up on. And so I'm gonna take these greens and you just click and hold and you drag down. And now what you'll notice, it's targeting those greens, and I'm not gonna desaturate them all the way. I'm just gonna bring them down just a little bit. So I'm gonna go right about there, -53. I'm gonna bring the yellow down. After bringing the yellow down, I think I'm gonna bring back the green just a little bit, because now the green's a little too gone. Next, I'm gonna bring the red down just a little bit, like -2. Those red tones are mostly gonna be in the skin tones. And sometimes if I notice skin tones are just a little too red in the photo, I'll take down the red just a little bit. Take the mid-tones here. Usually this is what I like to do. I like to usually go towards yellow or orange. And then this is shadows. Sometimes I like to go towards the blue. It really depends on the image, honestly. I wanna say for this one, I went towards orange again. So you can, it's literally, I'm barely moving it, but the smallest change will make the biggest difference. Yeah, we're gonna go right there. Next, we're going to add a little bit of grain, just do like 16. Okay, now I'm gonna come back up here. And I'm gonna raise the contrast to we'll do +9, and then I'm gonna bring the exposure up. And we'll do like we'll do +10. Bring the highlights back down. Okay, we're getting there, I'm gonna show you a little trick right now that I do in a lot of photos, at least ones that have a lot of sort of highlights like this. It's a really easy trick to make it more dreamlike without throwing it into Photoshop. So I'm just gonna get the brush tool up here, and I'm gonna go to custom, and we're gonna go dodge, and then I'm actually gonna bring this up to like 32. And then clarity, we're gonna bring down to like -77. I'm just gonna bump up this brush size here. Okay, now what it's gonna do is it's gonna brighten up wherever you brush, and with the clarity down, it's also gonna soften that area too. Perfect. I'm gonna add one more brush. So this left side of the image is a lot darker than the right side, because obviously the sun was more on the right. But I kind of want to even it out a little bit, so I'm gonna get another brush and do basically a similar thing with the exposure. We're gonna go +20, and we're gonna bring the clarity down just a little bit this time, -21. And I'm just gonna make this big. I'm gonna actually bring this down to just 1.16, and we'll call it there. Okay, next I'm going to get another brush, and we're gonna do the same thing, but this time we'll just do we'll do +20 again. And then I'm going to make this smaller, and I'm just going to target the bride and the groom and brighten them up a little bit. Okay, so I just showed you a photo from a wedding. Now I'm gonna do one more photo, and it's more of a portrait headshot. Okay, so here's the before, this is the raw shot, here's the after. Just like the first one, I am going to straight into the tone curve. We're gonna bring up the highlights here and bring down the shadows. Bottom line here, kind of make it a little softer. This temperature up here, I'm gonna warm it up. Next, I'm going to bring the contrast up, bring the exposure up, 0.05. I'm going to bring clarity down to like -3. I'm gonna bring the white up to +7 HSL right here. So I'm gonna bring the yellow down again. So we're gonna -35. I'm gonna take this green, bring it down, and then we're gonna go into the hue actually. I'm gonna click on this little clicker right here and go up to this leaf. I'm gonna drag it down and just see. I'm gonna go right there. We're gonna go to the luminance now. We're gonna grab that clicker again, and we're gonna go on this leaf, and we're gonna drag it down. Okay, I'm actually gonna drag it up. See, that's one of the things, is you just kind of got to mess around with things and then decide what you want the final product to be. So that's +5 on the yellow, +9 on the green. She's already pretty centered, but I'm just gonna do it just a little more. Okay, midtones. I'm gonna drag this up, do just a little bit too, sort of baby blue. Add a little bit of grain. Next, I'm gonna bring exposure up, but I'm gonna bring the highlights down to -12. Now I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna edit the skin. Really all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna smooth it up just a little bit and then brighten the eyes. I'm gonna get a brush, we're gonna hit this drop down right here, and we're gonna go to skin smoothing. I like to use this preset, but then what I'll do is I'll bring the texture, and I'll bring it up to like -50, somewhere around there. And I'll bring the exposure, and I'll bring it up to, usually I like it to brighten the skin, but it also depends on the image. But usually I'll just bring it around like 0.05. And we're just gonna go in and brush over the skin. Next, I'm going to go to the brush tool again, hit the plus, brush. We're gonna hit that drop down again. We're gonna go to iris. We're gonna go iris enhance. But then we're gonna bring the saturation down to 0. Come over here and just hit the eyes real quick. And that'll just make them nice and glowy. Okay, and there is our final image. But yeah, that is how I edit my portraits in Lightroom, sort of my thought process and the just different steps that I do each time. I hope this helped you in some way. If you have any questions or any other things that you want to see, let me know in the comments. Yeah, thanks for watching.